We're finishing up the original Tales trilogy by Kevin J. Anderson. Well, edited by Kevin J. Anderson with Tales from Jabba's Palace. This came out back in 95. And technically, it's the second of these Tales books in publication order. Now, why did I read Tales of the Bounty Hunters first? Well, because it's the second one in this 3-volume collection. So this was edited by Kevin J. Anderson and features, I think, like 20-ish stories. So we're going to go through all of them. Starting with A Boy and His Monster, The Rancor Keeper's Tale by Kevin J. Anderson. This is about Malakili. He's the guy we see briefly who's crying when the Rancor's killed. It's a neat little story of him. He's hired by Jabba because Jabba just got this creature. Well, Bib Fortuna and a bunch of Jawas find a creature. As I recall, it's one of the Jawas from the Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina stories. Finds this thing has gotten loose in a ship and caused it to crash. And he sells it to Bib Fortuna, and Bib Fortuna gives it to Jabba as a big gift and ends up being promoted to Major Domo. And so they hire Malakili to train the Rancor, essentially as Jabba's way of getting rid of people. Overall, I like this one quite a bit. It's a little longer, but, I'm okay with it. And I really don't have a problem with most of these stories in here. So I'd give this one a 4 out of 5. Next is Taster's Choice, The Tale of Jabba's Chef by Barbara Hambly. This is about Porcellus the Cook. People are kind of dying left and right in Jabba's palace, and Jabba suspects that Porcellus has something to do with it, and it's about his Porcellus's paranoia, and which ends up becoming his undoing. I like Porcellus. He shows up in a bunch of these stories, and it starts to show an overarching trend that comes out throughout these stories, and we don't figure out what's going on for sure until the end, near the end of this collection, with people dying left and right, and it's pretty humorous in a lot of ways. In other ways, it's kind of terrifying. I like this one. This is probably, in my opinion, Barbara Hambly's best Star Wars story, I think, ever. I give this another 4 out of 5. Worth your time to check out. Next, that's Entertainment, The Tale of Salacious Crumb by Esther M. Friesner. Anyway, it's about this scholar who is trying to write an article on Jabba, wants to interview Jabba, and he ends up teaming up with Salacious Crumb, and it's like a weird humor story. This is the one story, I think, in this entire collection that I disliked. I thought it was tedious. I didn't find it particularly funny. It's kind of a whatever story. Less said about it, the better. I give it a 2.5 out of 10. I just did not care for this one. Next is A Time to Mourn, A Time to Dance, Ula's Tale by Kathy Tyers. And this is about Ula, the Green Twi'lek dance girl, who is coerced by Bib Fortuna. Her and another Twi'lek dancer are basically manipulated into becoming Jabba's dancers. And who is to foil this plan other than Luke Skywalker, with it involving a chance encounter in Mos Eisley. And Ula is thinking back on Luke after seeing the hologram of him, realizing that he is what he says he is, that sort of thing. But it's about her one final dance. It's a neat little story. I liked it. I liked it far more than Kathy Tyers' Bosk Tale. But it's not my favorite of Kathy Tyers' stuff. It's fine. I'll give it a good 3.2 out of 5. Next, Let Us Pray, The Whippet's Tale by Martha Finch and Mark Budas. And This deals with Jakeel, the Whippet, who is sent by essentially Lady Valerian to kill Jabba. And he is one of the many plots. He has one of the many plots that are in motion to kill Jabba. This is the other overarching thing. Everyone's trying to kill Jabba. No one likes Jabba. And this is the beginning of that. And we start to see little connections between it and Porcellus' story, with people dying left and right. He doesn't know what's going on. He ends up accidentally killing one of the Botar monks. He just trying to get... he was one of Lady Valerian's lovers. This isn't the same guy she tried to marry in the We Don't Do Weddings story from Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina, although that is mentioned here. But Lady Valerian wants Jabba gone because she wants his turf. She's the only other, big crime lord on Tatooine that is anywhere near a rival to Jabba. So this is one of her plots against Jabba. Next, Sleight of Hand, The Tale of Mara Jade by Timothy Zahn. Yes, we get to talk about this tale. And first of all, I want to thank a couple people because I was confused with this one. I was confused at a few of these, but this one in particular, we'll get into it. But I wanted to thank Joe Bongiorno and Marcel, the Revanist, for helping me out with this one. This is essentially to explain how Mara got into Jabba's palace and why she wasn't there at the battle at the Great Pit of Carkoon. We initially see her dancing for the Fat Man. Now, who is the Fat Man? Well, he refers to himself as he used to do business as Jabba. He is not Mosep Benid from the Marvel Comics, though. What he is best described, he's a nod to the stand-in Scottish actor that portrayed Jabba in the original Star Wars. That was just a stand-in for an effect, which ended up being cut from the film. And quite honestly, somewhat of a hot take, because there are fans of this scene with Jabba being put back in. I think it's utterly pointless. I liked it in the Marvel Comics, and that's solely because I like the character of Mosep Benid. This is before we knew that was his name. And him being the accountant of Jabba makes sense. This guy just wanting to claim he's Jabba doesn't, but Zahn explains that he's kind of like a braggart goofball that no one really respects in the palace. And it's essentially Mara has an adventure, and I like it. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, because I don't like the principle of the story, and I've never... It's one of my big problems with Zahn's Thrawn trilogy, is that it just... You would think, with Mara Jade being as big a character as she is, that people... we would have seen her in Return of the Jedi, but she's not there. So I don't know. It's just a weird one. It's just a weird idea, but he handles it well, and this is probably my favorite of his short stories for these collections. I'd give it a 4 out of 5. It's worth your time to check out. Next we have And Then There Was Some. The Gamorrean Guard's Tale by William F. Wu. And this is about Gartog. And Gartog is the dumbest of the Gamorrean Guards. So there's been an overall... Throughout this collection, the Gamorreans are the bottom of the barrel. And they're all treated by the other species in the palace as idiots. But there is a hierarchy of the Gamorreans, and Gartog is the bottom. The guy eats styrofoam and thinks it's a treat. He's not bright. And Gartog realizes that there's something going on in the palace, and people keep ended up murdered. and it's about him bumbling his way through, and the irony is he by the end of it, he's not far from the truth, but it's Gartog, so you're not going to respect him. Which is really funny, and this one's a funny tale. Like, actually funny. Like, I was laughing out loud. There's some, as Sam Raimi would call it, splat stick. So he's carrying two dead bodies around throughout this tale, and they're like, one of them's been poisoned. It's the kitchen boy, and he's just disintegrating, like he's decomposing as Gartog wanders around, because he wants to solve this mystery of these murders so that he can go on the sail barge. He wants to prove to his boss that he can go on the sail barge. It's really funny. This is one of my favorites. I give it a good 4.5 out of 5. Next, Old Friends, Efont Mon's Tale by Kenneth C. Flint. And this is about Efont Mon. He's like the elephant-looking guy who's kind of stumpy. And it reads like a weird... It's a weird first person that borderlines on like a detective / noir thing, but it's not. And it's essentially Efont Mon in how he encounters Luke Skywalker, and it kind of changes his life and changes him for the better. That's really it. What did I think of this one? It's okay. The way it's written is a little funky compared to everything else, and so I didn't care for it as much. It's probably one of the better things Kenneth C. Flint wrote for Star Wars, but it's still just kind of weird. I give it a good 3.7 out of 5. Next, we got Goatgrass, The Tale of Reese by Deborah J. Ross. Reese is a Gotog that he's trying to plot against Jabba for the Empire, but he's a drunken fool. And essentially, he's been showing up throughout these stories, and he's just an a-hole. And he ends up, like, this is the first one of these that deals with the sail barge. So about halfway through here, like, we start getting tales that involve being on the sail barge as well. The earlier ones, they don't make it to the sail barge, but these latter ones do. And essentially Reese realizing that he's, like, because of his drunken foolery, he has, like, these blackouts, and something has happened to him, and he kind of overcomes it, but it doesn't matter, because the sail barge blows up, which ends up being a thing with a lot of these stories. I liked it. I gave it a good 4 out of 5. It was pretty enjoyable. Next is And the Band Played On, The Band's Tale by John Gregory Betancourt. It's about the Max Rebo Band. How they formed up, how they were supposed to be a different band, and then a group of Biths attack them and end up killing the band leader, and Slice Noodles and Max Rebo form the Max Rebo Band. Max Rebo makes a deal to play at Jabba's palace indefinitely for all the food they can eat, because for his species that is the greatest deal you can have. But Slice Noodles and the other member do not agree with this, and it's a funny story. I liked it quite a bit. It's probably one of the longest ones. It's broken up into parts, but it is worth your time to check out. Now, I was not looking forward to this one because of the stupid Max Rebo Band comics in Star Wars Tales that are all god-awful and not fun to read, and I never considered those canon. So reading this is the definitive Max Rebo Band story to me. It's something to note. We don't have the weird flea-looking guy that gets up into the camera and you see his uvula when he goes, ah, in the special edition, because this was written 2 years prior to the special edition's release. So it's neat to see that. And that out of all of these is probably the most noticeable, that the special edition wasn't a thing yet. I really, really like the story. I'm going to give it a 4.7 out of 5. Next, we have Of the Day's Annoyances, Bib Fortuna's Tale by M. Shea Bell. And this is essentially Bib Fortuna's, all of his, like, plotting and stuff comes to fruition. And they really, M. Shea Bell really goes into Bib Fortuna's character because he's a bad guy, but he has his reasons for being a bad guy, which is neat. Does it redeem him? No. He's plotting against Jabba. He knows about all these other plots against Jabba. In fact, I didn't even bring this up in the band played on. We get to know that Slice Noodles is being paid by a bunch of people to spy on Jabba, and Bib Fortuna pays her so she can give him all the information of who wants what information, and he doles it out. So we knew Bib Fortuna was aware of a lot of the plots against Jabba, and we kind of find out how much he knows in this, which is pretty much most of it. So I liked it. There's another Twi'lek who's of a noble Twi'lek family that Bib Fortuna's trying to keep alive, so once he gets rid of Jabba, he will take Jabba's money and essentially free Ryloth and bring it into the current Imperial era, so they aren't all being used, the Twi'leks aren't being used as slaves, rather they can be trained as assassins and that sort of thing. That's his goal. And we get a neat scene of him and Luke kind of negotiating at Jabba's townhouse prior to Return of the Jedi. And it's a neat scene of he has the opportunity to like align with the rebellion, but he doesn't think it's going to go anywhere. So it's a good one. And we get to see the Botar monks who have been in throughout. Some of them are actual like humanoid monks, human monks that live in the palace that were there before Jabba. And others are brains in big old spider-bodied vats, essentially. They can live forever and contemplate the universe. And we get to see the Botar monks' plan. And Bib Fortuna is one of a few characters that's kind of aligned with them. So it's neat. I really like this one. I give it a 4.8 out of 5. Next, The Great God Quay, The Tale of Barda and the Weequays by Greg Alec Effinger. Barada, not Barda. Barada. So, Barada is he's the mechanic of Jabba's palace. He works on the sail barge and all the skiffs. And when they find a dead, the captain of the sail barge dead, which happened in a previous story, I won't say which one, so not spoil things. The Weequay kind of realize that there's a plot going on, and the Weequay, it's so weird because I'm used to what Dave Filoni did with like Hondo and Weequay since, but the Weequay essentially don't have names. They're kind of a weird collective people, and they have essentially a magic 8-ball that is their god, and they ask it questions, and it's pretty hilarious. And they're trying to figure out, they know something's going to happen to the sail barge, but they can't figure out what's going to happen. And kind of hilarity ensues. So, I like this one. The less said about it, the better. It's another 4.8 out of 5 for me. One of my personal favorites. Next, we get A Bad Feeling, The Tale of EV-99 by Judith and Garfield Reeves Stevens. EV-99 is the main torture droid in Jabba's palace. And this torture droid was originally employed by Lando Calrissian as part of security on Cloud City. Ends up killing some people and running away from Cloud City. And only to go to Jabba's palace and perform these heinous experiments on droids and how much pain they can have, because something was done incorrectly with EV-99's programming, and it's addicted to pain. It's like basically if a Cenobite was a droid. Like, the pain and pleasure thing is kind of mixed up. I really, really like this one. I like how it ends. It has a little bit of a twist end. It honestly felt like they were channeling a little bit of Clive Barker's The Hellbound Heart with this. It's not gory because it involves droids, but it's a bit on the disturbing side and reads as a horror short story. And I'm all about like changing up some of the genres in this collection. If as long as the writing's there, I'm all there. I'm all for it. This is a good 4.8 out of 5. Next, we have Free Quarren in the Palace, Tessek's Tale by Dave Wolverton. And we all know I love Dave Wolverton's stuff. I got to meet him in real life. He was a really nice man. And I wish I had known about this, because I would have talked about it. Essentially, the Quarren's tale, Tessek's Tale, is Tessek is in league with the Godel and is trying to plot to get rid of Jabba, and it's about that. It's one of those tales that kind of ties some things together. I like it. The less said, the better on this one, because, like I said, I can't talk about it without kind of spoiling other things. But I'm a big fan. Dave Wolverton always brought something unique to Star Wars, and it's worth your time to check out. It's a 4.5 out of 5 for me. Next, we got Tongue Tied, Booble's Tale by Daryl F. Mallet. And this is the frog thing that's outside Jabba's palace that we see for 2 seconds. That we also saw in a previous story that is an agent. We find out that it's actually a sentient being. It's a very short story. And I am all here for it. It's a nice change of pace. It adds a little more to another story. Less said, the better. But I'm all here for it. I give it a good 4 out of 5. Out of the Closet: The Assassin's Tale by Jennifer Robertson. And this is a Danik Jericho story. Yes. The Anzat of the Anzati, the snot vampire. So he's been rumored to be in Jabba's palace by several people. They know something. There's a serial killer in the palace. Now we know it's Danik Jericho, and essentially he loses his flippin' mind, and it is fascinating to read. And this is in third person present tense, but Jennifer Robertson is the master of writing these third-person present tense short stories. I liked Soup's On a lot. I praised that one quite a bit when I reviewed Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. I like this one a little more. It's a nice sequel to it. And him getting greedy and getting sloppy. I like it. I'm not going to say any more. It's worth your time to check out. This is another 4.8 out of 5. Next is Shara and the Sarlacc, the Skiff Guard's Tale by Daniel Oakes. And this is a story of someone surviving the Sarlacc pit, and it's being told to Boba Fett. It's okay. It's my second least favorite of the stories. It feels unnecessary, and it feels tacked on for the next story in this collection. I give it a 3 0.6 out of 5, 3.7, somewhere in there. Next, we're going to jump into A Barv Like That, The Tale of Boba Fett by J.D. Montgomery, aka Daniel Keyes Moran. And this is about Boba Fett and his time in the Sarlacc. And him having conversations with various beings that have been ingested in the Sarlacc. Is the Sarlacc a sentient being, or does it just hold the sentience of the things it's eating? I'm not sure. It's a really weird one. Now, Daniel Keyes Moran also wrote the Boba Fett story in Tales of Bounty Hunters, and this ties into the Boba Fett character he wrote for that. Like, they are one and the same. It's nice. He also wrote the Devaronian's Tale in Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. I like Daniel Keyes Moran and how he writes Boba Fett. I wish he had written the Bounty Hunter Wars. It would have been a lot better of a book, but he didn't really write any novels. This is a really weird story, and it's probably the best depiction of Boba Fett in the Sarlacc pit. The Boba Fett and the Sarlacc pit might be the most convoluted, nonsensical thing in Star Wars history, because there's about 3-4 different things. So we got this story and Dengar's tale from Tales of the Bounty Hunters, and those match up well with one another, as well as the Boba Fett's tale in Tales of the Bounty Hunters. Those all kind of, they mesh together well. Then you got the Bounty Hunter Wars, which we'll be getting to soon enough, that just ignores most of this. And then, of course, we got the Marvel comics that weren't considered canon at the time, that did their own thing with Boba Fett and the Sarlacc pit, which we will get to soon enough. We're going to be spending a lot of time with Boba Fett in the Sarlacc pit and the absolute nonsense that is Boba Fett in the Sarlacc pit. I am not a fan of Boba Fett in the Sarlacc pit, simply because it's a nonsensical dumpster fire. I don't know why it's a nonsensical dumpster fire, but for some reason it is. With that being said, this story is really interesting. I mean, Boba Fett talks to a Jedi that was once eaten by a Sarlacc. Then we also have, what was the other thing? There's like a Corellian gamblers eaten by the Sarlacc. He just talks to various beings before he decides decides he doesn't want to be eaten by the Sarlacc. I liked it. I give it a good 4.6 out of 5. The only thing I didn't like is that this establishes that there's only one Sarlacc on Tatooine, which has been retconned in the Republic comics. As I recall, Anakin and Asherod had come across Sarlaccs fighting in an issue, which is really peculiar. I don't know how to feel about that. That's a good issue in and of itself, other than that. But, yeah, it's weird. Anyway, next we go into Skin Deep, The Fat Dancer's Tale by A.C. Crispin. This is about the character Yarna Dal Gargan. And it deals with the aftermath of the sail barge explosion and the absolute chaos that becomes Jabba's palace, with the remaining denizens just annihilating the palace and being absolute hooligans. She and this he was hired by Jabba to hunt down a crate dragon for the Rancor to fight. They end up escaping together to rescue her kids from Jabba's townhouse, because if she doesn't pay back, since she's now free to Jabba, there's no guarantee that her children won't be sold into slavery. So she wants to rescue them. And it's a great little adventure, and it is my favorite story of this. I thought it was very, very nice to get like a sort of, these are like genuinely good characters here, which, I like pretty much all the characters in this. They're mostly bad guys, but these two are genuinely pretty good, uh, good people in the Skin Deep story. It's my favorite. It's probably my favorite AC Crispin story. AC Crispin, I wish she had done more in Star Wars. And all those Trek authors, she's probably the best one suited for Star Wars. I liked her stuff. She's no Vonda McIntyre. That's for sure. But this is my favorite. I give it a 5 out of 5. And then lastly, we get to Epilogue, Whatever Became of... ... question mark, by Kevin J. Anderson. And this is just an epilogue for the remaining surviving characters of this story. And is the best way to wrap this up, this wonderful collection of short stories. I really liked it. It ties things in with like Courtship of Princess Leia and other stories, and even leaves things open for a few characters that will show up later in the EU, which is fun. I give it a solid 5 out of 5. It's the best way you could end this collection of short stories. Now, what do I think of Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina? It is my absolute favorite Star Wars collection of short stories, and is a great contender for one of my favorite short story collections in general, because it does something a lot of short story collections don't do. There is an overarching thing that ties them all together that is really solid. In my opinion, the best short story collections are they have to have the same, either the same setting or the same sort of moral compass to a certain extent, or same themes. It needs to have one of those three in order for it to be a good short story collection, in my opinion. I have read plenty of collections that are either A, just plain terrible, or B, just all over the place in quality. I mean, look at Stephen King's Skeleton Crew. Sure, you have The Mist, but then you have just nonsense like his terrible poetry, and just every other story deals with Castle Rock to the point where you never want to see Castle Rock again. Like, it's just, there's a lot of really bad ones. Like Canto Bight, we'll use another Star Wars one from the new canon. That was 4 novellas that were a waste of time. An absolute waste of time. They didn't add anything. They wished they were this story, but no one cared enough. The only one who kind of cared was John Jackson Miller, who brings back a character from the Kenobi book. But yeah, it's just, most short story collections or novella collections are just vary in quality, but this one's probably the best. It has probably for the amount of stories in this, because it's crazy how many stories got put in Tales from Jabba's Palace. It really stays high quality, and I think that's thanks to Kevin J. Anderson. This is probably the best thing he ever attached his name to with the Star Wars moniker on it. And that's saying something, because he wrote quite a bit of stuff for Star Wars. And I know I get labeled a Kevin J. Anderson hater because I don't like what he and Brian Herbert did with the Dune prequels. But I don't hate Kevin J. Anderson Star Wars stuff. Some of it I like better than others, and he does put some dumb things in here or there, but overall, I have a lot of nostalgia for Kevin J. Anderson, but he really cared. That's the big thing. He genuinely cared about making the best product he could with this. This is the best of the original 3 Tales books. And like, it's the best of the ones that have an overarching theme to them, with the Jabba's Palace setting. It's the best, in my opinion, and I highly recommend it. It is one of my favorite Star Wars books of all time, bar none. So why am I not talking about Tales from the New Republic and Tales of the Empire when I talk about these Tales books? It's because they are two very different beasts. These Tales books in this collection, they were all written to be tales, be in like Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, Tales from Jabba's Palace, that sort of thing. They were meant for that. Tales from the New Republic is a collection of unpublished adventure journal stories from West End Games, which is nice in its own right. I love when lost Star Wars stuff that would have been lost, a EU, is found and we can read it. But they vacillate in quality. And then, of course, Tales of the Empire was just a recollecting of the adventure journal stories. It's nice to have if you don't have the adventure journals, which are very expensive these days and almost not worth owning simply because they're just too expensive. But overall, again, they vary in quality of the stories. And I will talk about both those collections when I get done with the New Republic material. So after Young Jedi Knights, I think, is when I will tackle those. Because, like, I don't want to be that guy that, like what Matt Wilkins did with Matt's Expanded Universe. No shade on that, where it's like everything's in chronological order. Because I know I'm doing a lot of these in chronological order, or somewhat, kind of. And I don't want to do that with that. That's just way too much work for what I do with this channel. I would rather read those all kind of collected. Unlike with Lost Tribe of the Sith, where I am breaking those 9 novellas up. But that's because they were all released individually and were supposed to stand up on their own, except for that last one that is just a tie-in to Fate of the Jedi. So, anyway. What would I give Tales from Jabba's Palace out of 5? I give it a solid 4.7 out of 5. It's one of my, like I said, one of my favorite collections of short stories, kind of bar none. It's one of my favorite Star Wars stories. And with the exception of 2 stories, I had a grin on my face throughout reading these. They're well worth your time to check out. And even if you only are able to check out one of these Tales from books, I would recommend this one. This is bar none my absolute favorite. It made me want to watch Return of the Jedi again and just watch the Jabba's palace scenes, because that's where it's at. And also part of this has to do with I loved the Jabba's palace stuff as a kid. I thought that was the neatest thing. I thought all the costumes were just awesome. Now I know they cut corners with things here or there, but like, as a little kid, I just really dug these. Dug Return of the Jedi, primarily for this. And I always loved the skiff sail barge fight. That's just so cool. Luke coming into Jabba's palace, like all silhouetted. It looks just dope. It's just good stuff. So, anyway, have a nice day.